It's Monday. Welcome into Inside LAFC podcast. We are live on LAFC YouTube. We are live on LAFC Facebook. A reminder to like and subscribe the video and join the channel here on LAFC. We are targeting 100,000 subscribers, so be part of that. Spread the word. We're here in the good times and the bad. That's what they say in the North End. Sometimes we're celebrating America. Sometimes we're here after a Whitecaps loss. So with that note, we bring in the one and only Keith Costigan, who called the game. Keith, I joke, but I think this is a really important show because it feels like we're at a turning point for LAFC. They're in the summer. Historically, they've been able to alleviate things, and that this is a club with a high standard. So I think it's exciting with what's going to lie ahead after this Whitecaps game, which we will talk as well. But how are things for you in your world?
Well, first of all, delighted to be on the show. I wish you brought me on after an America win, after you qualify for Club World Cup. But no, you bring me on the day after. I would imagine a bit of a deflating loss. But I'm with you. I think if any club has the ability to brush things off over the last couple of years and go on a run, it's LAFC. And the perspective is this is the first loss in 10 games in Major League Soccer play as well. So I think it's a blip, nothing more, but not the easiest day to make my debut on your show.
But that's why we watch you. Keith does a wonderful job. He's one of the top announcers for MLS. He called the game again, as we mentioned here on Sunday with Mariano Trujillo. He is in Los Angeles, so he has a real finger on the pulse, not only as a broadcaster, but as a great coach. So we're thrilled to have Keith, and we appreciate your time. I joke around with Keith, but he is a wonderful wealth of knowledge. He knows his stuff. And we will talk about the game on White. We're going to talk about a lot. We're going to talk about the Giroud farewell, which was very well done by the folks at LAFC and the LAFC 3252, which insisted he come over and bid farewell. We'll talk about the summer market. I know a lot of stuff out there. We want to hear from you. What do you think LAFC should do to reinforce this team as they do every time? We'll talk about a very busy month of July. LAFC has games in hand. They need to win these games, but they can get in a lot better situation in the Western Conference. Before we move forward, as we welcome everyone, great to see Sebastian, Ruben, our regulars, LAFC fan, Craig Griffin joining us, waiting for Hamilton Academia. Is that it, Hamilton? Joining the Club World Cup one day? We'll see. And Jay David. So questions about the summer market and what have you. I want to put a bow on the Club World Cup because it does talk about what we saw a bit against the Whitecaps. Your thoughts on not just what LAFC and MLS has done now. MLS, their campaign is over with Inter Miami getting knocked out. LAFC got a point against Flamengo. They just got the one goal, but we knew it was going to be an uphill battle. It's not a level playing field when you're talking about Europe and South America. How did you view what LAFC was able to do in MLS at large?
Yeah, I went in not knowing what to expect, really. I think we all did. It was like, we talk about friendly games, and now you're playing games that matter. I think you look back, the Esperance game was probably the poorest performance, given you felt that was a game you could win. Yet you still miss a penalty to get a point in that game late on. And you lead late on against Flamengo and ultimately give up the level in goal. But I think overall in every game, I think you can take positives out of it. I think you can say LAFC gave a good account of themselves, particularly against Chelsea, who you talk about budgets. I was talking to John Thorrington last night. The budget for Chelsea's academy is £36 million a year. They signed a £40 million striker right before the tournament. They just signed another £50 million striker. So I think good account of ourselves, MLS in general, LAFC too. But I think it's given us enough fuel to understand what's needed in 4 years' time. If MLS are to be back in this tournament again, we kind of have to open up the purse strings a little bit and allow the LAFCs of this world to go out and sign some other key players to make sure we're as competitive as we possibly can be. But the last point on this for me, Seattle home, Inter Miami, as well. I would have loved to have seen LAFC, Chelsea in BMO Stadium on a Friday night, just absolutely packed to the brim. It would have been incredible. Not to be because it was a late entry, but I think LAFC can hold their head up high in terms of how they performed in this tournament.
I'll touch on that really quickly about maybe FIFA next time they do this. Maybe they go to these MLS stadiums but they've had venues where there's 40,000, 45. We saw the Rose Bowl, but that would have been incredible. Let me ask you this because it it feels like MLS is watching this, commissioner, and they're tuning into this tournament, and they've got to say, okay, we're here. We have 3 teams in here. We were there. We had a team in the round of 16. Sounders performed against a very difficult group, the most difficult group. LAFC in the margins. Who knows if a goal goes in here, maybe they make. That has to encourage them. I think something will come out of this Club World Cup where MLS says, all right, let's help our clubs so we can improve here because now we're in the door. That said, and I want to see if you agree with that, but I think that said, the spending, if you increase the cap a little bit and clubs spend it, I think that's just to maintain what MLS teams could do. If you want to compete with Chelsea, as you said about the academy, you have to blow this thing, and MLS is not ready for that. And so I don't think they're going to compete to the level where they're going to win. So I just want people to know what we're up against here, because against Flamengo, they're bringing in Jorginho, who was the MVP of the Champions League in 2021. They're bringing Brazil internationals off the bench left and right. And LAFC, they were paper thin on the bench. So I think you need to spend just to keep pace in order to win a game in the knockouts. I think that's another level. I don't think we are ready just realistically as a league.
Yeah, and I think you could look to the performance of some of the Liga MX sides who have a little bit more spend in terms of depth of squad, and their performances haven't been great either. So that next step is a tough step. A little bit more is not necessarily going to get you to the holy grail of knockout games and being more competitive against the Chelseas of this world. But I will say, looking back on it, you want the commissioner, you want everybody to say, we played well. We competed in these games, but also understanding we need to do more as a group to make sure we can go one step further. But I'm with you. You have to make those steps incrementally to make sure that you're not putting clubs in position to fail financially moving forward as well.
As we move forward towards the Whitecaps game, and we welcome in Atsuko joining us. If there's anyone on Facebook, leave a question. Lunch special Gio coming in pretty hot. We'll talk about all this and the Club World Cup. Steve mentioned this: 5 hotels in 3 days, dealing with in camp in Macon, and I'm not making an excuse here, but this was very difficult. LAFC, you talked about what it would be like if they were playing at BMO Stadium. I was in Seattle, and I saw the Sounders look sharp on Saturday night. But they got to play everything in Seattle. They played their 3 games, so they never had to go to a hotel, and so they came in and they're ready. Now, that makes a huge difference because it's not just the travel and the heat, but that comfort level. I saw if LAFC got to be in Los Angeles, I know for a fact it would have made a big difference. But that's water under the bridge. They made the tournament late. And as we move into this Whitecaps game, as the LAFC lost against a shorthanded Whitecaps team, that's obviously very a bitter pill. It just looked flat. I would say that's part of it. I would say what happened at the Club World Cup set them in there, and you could feel the sluggishness. I was hoping there'd be a response, but when I think about the travel, you have to equate that into this as well. So it's not. It could have been different. We could have seen all these great visitors from Argentina and Brazil on the streets, as we sort of did as they played in the Rose Bowl. If you're in the Pasadena area, we could have seen that, but that was part of it. Let's look at this Whitecaps game. You called it. How much did it feel like they were a bit heavy? Did it just? I mean, Steve Trundolo afterwards was mentioning how the first half they fell behind. The second half they were a touch away. He says we have a way of attacking. We can't lose the balance. Too much individuality, lacking 1 or 2 more passes.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Steve hits the nail on the head. I do want to lead in on this game because, on a personal note, David Ochoa made his first team debut last night. And David is a kid who's close to my heart. I hired him as an academy coach in Ventura. His younger brother's is part of my academy, Adrian, who's a young goalkeeper too. And I've seen David grow, from being a teenager. He's becoming an adult now. And I was really, really pleased to be on the call for that last night because David's a good young man who maybe took a couple of knocks over the last couple of years in terms of his decisions, but it was nice to see him on the field last night. So I wanted to get that out there. Yeah, look, I thought this was the Giroud farewell. I thought this game kind of encapsulated why the Giroud experiment didn't really work. It was the idea of him holding the ball up and linking and bringing others into play. It just looked slow and methodical until later on when Ordaz came on, when Martinez came on, and it looked more electric. Look, you can talk about this as a loss. You only gave up one shot on goal in this game. That was the goal. So defensively, it was a strong performance. You had more shots on goal. But I will look at those chances created. And there wasn't that many clear-cut chances. There didn't seem to be someone that could, open up a defense really, really quickly. And I think that's where Steve's hitting on the individuality. And I will say this as well. I think Matthias Laborda maybe had the game of his life last night in the 1v1s with Denny Bwanga. I've seen Denny really hand it to Laborda in the past because you guys have played each other so much.
Very
Laborda
true.
was
Very true.
absolutely outstanding last night. And he was the key to success for Vancouver. So they were very, very, they conceded 5 in midweek as well. So they were defensive. I don't know whether you noticed, they didn't build out of the back. They were knocking it long out of the back. They were saying, we're not going to give LAFC those transition moments that they thrive on. So I thought very, very clever tactical plan from Jasper Sorensen. And I do think you have to add in a little bit of a Club World Cup hangover too for LAFC.
Had a chance to say hi to Jesper Sorensen and Axel, the technical director. The Whitecaps do a great job. And even though they're shorthanded, they have a spirit. This was a tough one for LAFC because that's a team you could have pulled back. Now the lead widens. Vancouver's at 38 points. LAFC's at 36. San Diego's at 39 points. They're a long way to go still, but LAFC has to play better. This is Inside LAFC Podcast. We're live on LAFC YouTube and LAFC Facebook every Monday. Like us, hit that thumb, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, spread the word. If you have a question, drop it. We're not running from anything. Lunch special, Gio. I know. I feel you. We're going to try and fix this. LAFC are in a bad spot right now, but we know they've been in these things and they've gotten out in the past. Ruben, we have seen our team play at a gold standard. When they play anything less, it can be, this is his words, it can be frustrating because we know they are better and can do more than they showed. Love LAFC. We know that. And Craig, I'm going to get to your question. Always good stuff there. But there's enough as you go through the digits about this game where you can, all right, not to say we expected it, but this was a bad performance. You're allowed that.
Yeah.
Now you've got to see what you can do with these made-up games because you have to get into it because all these games are rescheduled. If it continues, some alarm bells can certainly ring. This is just the second home loss. I remember the first loss was against Austin early in the season, and they looked very similar. And I wanted to also mention to you, Keith, if you haven't seen our David Ochoa conversation on Black and Gold Insider, check it out. If you haven't heard, wonderful guy. And I would say this, Hugo Lloris has already touched on what the future looks like. We hope he comes back next season. We don't know. And David Ochoa could very well be the right guy in the right time. So all these things come in as, LAFC will be very vocal. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but just goal creations I want to talk about before I get into the Olivier Giroud farewell. Defensively, it was good. The one chance, and this game ended 0-0. I think fans would certainly still feel pretty empty because it just didn't click. And you look at sometimes the stat line can be very forgiving for LAFC. It wasn't here. They just didn't do a lot. So what do you see in these things? There was a lot of turnovers. Vancouver filled the passing lanes and they couldn't get through. And now you have you've got to see it through. And I also want to talk about the lineup because this was experimental. They brought in some different players in Smolyakov, and this was a Giroud farewell game. And whether the Giroud situation worked out well, he's also thinking about his next stop. So this game is not your prototypical LAFC game, certainly on the attacking end. So what did you see that maybe it was a step away for LAFC to score a little bit more or score at all?
Yeah, I think like every team has an area where you say that's a weakness for them. And I think over the last couple of years for LAFC, when teams deny them the space that they want to attack into, I think LAFC have always been a team that runs into space well, but they don't create space well. And that means if you sit back, Tillman is less effective. Amaya is more of a link player who tries to open up avenues to attack in. I thought Igor Jesus did a good job last night of trying to open things up quickly. So when you don't have that creation central, you rely on the players wide. As I mentioned, Laborda, I thought did a really good job on Denny Bwanga. I thought Javier Del Rosum was really, really quiet last night, really passive in terms of his 1v1 moments. So I do think that's a concern. I think if you're looking towards LAFC, where's the creation going to come? I think David Martinez, when he came on, looked a different player. He's a wide player, but is probably a 10, right? We think that's where he'll end up with LAFC and beyond. He's still just 19, but when he gets on the ball, he does different things. He plays passes between lines. He can switch the play. He can take on a player. He can shoot from distance. So I think out of the squad they have right now, I look at him as being the most creative spark. And I don't think many coaches will say, well, that's great to have a 19-year-old as your best creative spark. You want someone with a little bit more experience too, because, you know, with experience, you know, comes that ability to be consistently a threat. So I think they'll make a move in this regard. But I look right now, and this is a big year for David Martinez. I think over the 7 games in July, he's going to get opportunities to really take a hold of a position. I could see him play as a 9, by the way. I think he could drop in and get on the ball, and kind of like Matty Bogusz did when he was at his very best. I think that kind of 9 suits LAFC more than, you know, a hold-up Giroud style 9 who kind of slows up the play a little bit as well. So it's been an issue. Having said that, LAFC are always one of the top teams in the league, so they find a way to get through it. But I would imagine that's the one area they're looking to really add to the group as they move forward for the rest of the season.
And with Giroud going, I think everyone says we need a 9. Maybe LAFC, as you said, is better equipped without one. Earlier I said LAFC has 36 points. They have 26 points. So they do have, we wish. But maybe they will be soon enough. We'll have a lot of games in July, so maybe I was right. So David Hernandez, we need about 2 strong, high IQ field vision players in the mid and back. 99 can't do everything, so maybe with the passing, I think that's a really good spot. And we'll talk about the summer market in a minute, but I agree. A really shrewd passer, a guy who connect that, I think, is someone that is there. Jay David, sitting in the south end, you see the attempted runs and open passing lanes. Long Segura, Igor did not make the passes. It is frustrating, and the forwards throw their hands up. It was frustrating. Normally, they're a little more connected, and Steve Cherundolo talked about that. The Olivier Giroud situation, he had this great shot in the first half where it was like kind of sidewinder, and he got so much behind it.
Don't you think that was a shot of a guy who knew he didn't have to feel the wrath of the coach the next day? Like, It was like, you know, like the next day going to training,
exactly.
Like, hey, we need you to not like be shooting from 40 yards. I don't have tomorrow. I'm doing it.
I know. It's like the movie Hoosiers, which I referenced. They said 4 passes, and then they don't 4 pass. The guy starts shooting threes. He hits them, and he pulls them out. He goes, "You're out. We're playing with 4 guys." But then there was a moment where Denny Bouanga was like, we were waiting for it. He was way out on the left side and hits this beautiful ball right on the money, and Giroud just wasn't ready for it, and he hit it over. Either of those chances go in, we're having a different conversation. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's the name of the game. We'll talk about the creation of the attack. Javier Dilrosun, and he was asked about it. He's just not settled in. We know he's talented. We know the LAFC scouting and recruiting is top notch. They see something in him. He's on the clock because he's here till the end of July, so he'll get chances to play. Hopefully, it clicks. I think there's a possibility. Steve Cherundolo said in his post game he thought with the attack, Denny Bouanga's played number 9. He played number 9 against Flamengo. He scored. Nate Ordaz has played number 9, false 9, or whatever you want to call it. And now we see David Martinez. I wouldn't rule it against. I think moving forward, we'll talk about it. It is Martinez's moment. Ordaz was coming off a concussion. You can forgive him for that. Martinez, Ordaz, Bouanga, probably your front 3 for this busy stretch in July. And we'll see where everyone else falls into place.
Yeah, agreed.
Look, I love it when our guys are in relation. David Hernandez in good point. D. Wallace, who says that Giroud shot great, but passed right open shot for DJ. So, yeah.
I love, Max, when because we talk to fans a lot. I love when fans tell me, we need a 9. I'm like, okay, what are you looking for? And they're like, we want a 9 who's a real threat in behind, but can also come and link play, has the ability to dribble 1v1, good finisher with both feet. And I'm like, you know, every time they say it, I'm like, that's another 5 million. That like these players don't grow on trees. It's difficult to go out there and find because there's like I feel like before, even at the beginning of MLS, you could go out and find someone and bring them in quickly. Now, when you're looking for a player, every other MLS team have their scouting networks in place. So it's so difficult. You can all identify the players. We all know who they are. Yeah, trying to get them in for the price you want, that's the big issue.
Yeah, and people forget about the competing with MLS teams, and there's 30 of them. And now you have San Diego, who have ambition. Galaxy have Philip Anschutz, who's got very, very deep pockets, although they can't really do it. We'll see where that goes. and it's a very competitive marketplace. But we'll move forward. We'll talk about what lies ahead. Leave your comments here, questions, whatever you like. We'll get to that here on Inside LAFC Podcast Live on LAFC YouTube and Facebook. Like, subscribe to the channel. Olivier Giroud, we've talked about him a lot, the farewell. And fans have reason to be upset because it didn't work out. It didn't. It really was, when you look at the players they brought in, it's just one of the worst matches that they have. But Jimmy Lopez, who's with the supporters group, he sent a message to us. He said, look, tell him to come down to the North End. We're going to pay tribute to him. I saw a lot of Giroud shirts. It was a very understanding moment of a fan base who now realized this is a guy who was for first class when he arrived here. He wanted to come to LA. I would also add he came to a time in the city which just, no one could have prepared for. He arrived. I think he had to get evacuated. He was part of, in the Palisades fire. Can you imagine coming here? You want to go to LA. That's your first experience.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of unrest in this city too, which is part of our being in the city. This Los Angeles, this is part and parcel. Yeah, you get the beach and the mountains, but you have to be diligent. And we've seen that with LAFC and how they support their neighbors. This is the MO. And not to say he didn't, but I when you come to LA, I don't think you expect to see all these things. And that may have been a bit of a shock, because this is a crazy 2025 from the January to now. LA's been tough. So I think, that is part of it, but not fitting in as well. His legacy, we'll see how it looks, but I think the supporters made it so easy for him to part ways. And because it had to him, for a guy who scores goals everywhere, it had to be a very bitter pill to swallow. And the supporters were first class. And they bid him farewell, and I just want to say how much I appreciate that, because this thing could go so many other directions.
Yeah, I think, first of all, watching last night, the class act that he is as a human, you could just see it. He was going around absolutely everybody, anybody who wanted a picture, going to the fans, and I'm sure he's disappointed. Like it didn't go according to plan on the field, but he never let his professional standards dip. And I think that's so important nowadays. We talk about people, representing the club well, and the club representing themselves well. So the way they've handled this, departure is incredibly dignified. Now, I'd be lying if I said in a few years, when they show a montage of Olivier Giroud's career moments, I don't think there's going to be any LAFC moments on that montage. That's just being real.
It's a very high-end montage. That's the reality.
Yes, it's you've got the Milans, you've got Chelsea, you've got Arsenal, you've got a World Cup win. It didn't work out, and that's okay. What I do like about when you're in business or anything, you've got to move on quickly when something doesn't work. And I think one of the best things John Thorrington has ever done is have that ability. You look at players he's brought in. No, that's not going to work. Let's go quickly. You've seen clubs in MLS persevere for 2-3 years with a DP where you're like, this is still not working. Why are they trying? And I like it. And the way they've handled it amicably, he walks away with a smile. He gets a good ovation from the fans. I think that is a great selling point when you look over the world, when people watch those scenes today and they say, that's a classy club. That's like they didn't get on his back. They didn't make it difficult. They supported him right until the very end. But I thought last night's game kind of encapsulated why it didn't work, because he was part of an attack that just didn't really look like they were going to break down Vancouver when he was on the field.
You hit the nail on the head, as you do so often, Keith, with that take. J. David Wallace, Giroud was not the problem. The system and players didn't fit. I don't think there's any argument there. And I just want to touch on what you said, because Giroud could have been upset, not playing, not starting for long stretches, and he could have made a stink, and he could have got out of this club, and he never did that. He was relatively quiet, waited for his turn, always supportive of his teammates. You see that. Ask them, and what Giroud meant. Ask Jeremy Abobasi, ask Nathan Ordaz, ask everyone. It was a good experience, and you can see the warmth between Giroud. You can see the warmth with Giroud when they won the Open Cup. It's the Open Cup. This guy's lifted the World Cup. This guy's lifted Champions League trophy. And he lifted the Open Cup like it was on those levels. Elated. That's important. Optics are important. So I think Giroud he'll be welcome back. I think there's something good at the end of this with his contribution. I don't know if it's going to be Giorgio Chiellini, who was at the game on Saturday, who has put so much. But these guys know that they're part of it, and they'll remember how they were treated. And to your point, I think others will see and go, that Giroud thing should have gone sideways, and it didn't, and it ended well for player and both. We look forward to Giroud. He's going to Lille, and also to your two great points you made, Keith, because they had to pull the plug. Giroud's under contract. He could have stayed here and been not playing and had been miserable. But LAFC and Giroud mutually talked about this, and they thankfully got Lille on board, and hopefully it goes well. And they cleared a DP, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and gives LAFC so much flexibility because he could have said, "I'll sit here. I'm okay. I don't have to play."
Was that your impression of Olivier Giroud?
No,
I'm just curious. Okay, I was making sure because you are good impressions. You are good at impressions.
That was not Olivier Giroud, who's been very nice with me, by the way. Last time I saw him, I went to the performance center and he gave me a big hug. So I was like, yeah, I should have photographed. I was going to try and photograph it, but it's just.
I have to say, he is one of those guys that is pretty annoying. Like, he's a good athlete. He's good looking. And then you want to hate him, but you can't because he's actually a good guy as well.
He has every reason. You can see the arrogance because he has every reason to be.
Yeah.
Because the guy's not at all. And you feel it, but it's nothing insane. David thinks, I think Giroud wants another shot at the World Cup. Giroud addressed the media after the game. He's going to Lille. Paul Pogba signed with Monaco. French League, be watching a little bit more. They got PSG, champions of Europe. They got FC Paris or Paris FC with the big ownership coming in. Lyon, we saw PSG.
What a name for a team, by the way. Paris FC. I mean,
come on. Genius name. How do they? It's like I'm looking forward to seeing the Formula One movie, and the name of the movie is F1 the movie. I go, genius.
Why mess with it? Yeah,
don't mess with it. So Paris FC. So the French league's going to be good. I'm curious. I will watch a lot more, and hopefully the Lyon situation, because I don't know if you I know you didn't, but some of the people listening it is Paris. PSG came in with some of the money that they owed for Bradley Barcola, and they're front loading it so that they can make their payments, which is just a lovely gesture. Granted, it's nice to be that rich, but hopefully that gets resolved and Lyon's up there because they have an American player and an American ownership group. We want them up there.
Yeah,
very good. Inside LAFC podcast live on YouTube and Facebook on the LAFC account. Follow the LAFC account, like it. Craig Griffin mentioning my Sean Connery impression, which I haven't done in a while, so we'll see, and we'll go on from there. All right, so what do we talk about? Let's talk about the summer market. It begins the secondary transfer window, July 24th, August 21st. So a lot brouhaha. You will see a lot of news. I think there's coaches news too. I think there was a big one. There are reports coming out. And this is what I want to say about the coaches. This is why Steve Cherundolo getting out in front and saying that this was going to be the end of the year so that they could interview people and we don't have to go, why are they talking to this guy or this guy? So there's nothing hidden. That's why LAFC did a really smart move. Said, hey, we're going to announce this and we're looking for coaches. And what they're doing, so they could be, I think there's Ange Postecoglou was one report. And they could be talking to Mauricio Pochettino. Doesn't mean that they're coming here. What it does mean is LAFC is at a good level and they are going to at least reach out to people who are available. We don't know who the next coach is, but they're having conversations. So that much is out there. Now the players, same kind of thing. I don't know who's going to come in there. We've talked about the profile. We know LAFC in the summer months in years past, they have brought in Gareth Bale, Giorgio Chiellini. Was Denny Bouang, I think, in there too in the summer?
Then it was a summer move.
He was a summer. Yeah. So expect LAFC to be active. Javairo Dilrosun we'll see if there's a third DP. Hopefully he works out and they can focus on. We mentioned, hey, they go for a number 9. I don't know. They've had 3 golden boots at LAFC. None of them have been a number 9. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. LAFC will be active. I think you go for a DP. Hopefully there's some flexibility where you can go internally in MLS. I think there's a lot of good players that LAFC could go for. I don't think they can get him, but Alonso Martinez at New York City.
We talked about this last night.
Right? That was your idea, right? Because he scores goals. But you could be creative with trades. I'm just using that as an example. And I expect LAFC, there'll probably be a couple guys, maybe more. But what kind of profile player, when you see this team, is near the top of the list? Obviously, depth, too, would help this club tremendously.
I think it's, I look back to last year when I thought there was a spell when LAFC were almost unplayable, and that's when Matty Bogusz was on the field. And I think LAFC have done a good job of mixing who they're signing, whether it be a young player like Bogusz who you can sell on and make a profit on, or a Denny Bwanga in the prime years of his career, and going for veterans who offer that star quality, the Chiellinis, the Gareth Bales. I think you're looking at a younger profile. I think, we all know the big names, and Griezmann linked in the past, and that's not going to happen this summer, may happen down the road. I think we're going to see LAFC make a signing of a player that maybe fans don't know about, a younger player, someone who's been on the books at one of the bigger clubs and been to France and being in Liga, who comes across like a Denny Bwanga, who's hungry to prove himself and succeed and maybe move on again. So I would look at the 9 position, but I wouldn't look at the 9 and say he's got to get 20 goals. I'd look at someone who can be highly creative in that role, who can complement Denny Bwanga, because you know how big he is to the team as well. And I do look at Matty Bogusz as kind of like the reference point for what style of player. Someone that could play as a 10 again, someone that could play higher, can maybe even go in a wide position. That versatility is going to be important. I still think David Martinez is one ready-made answer within the squad, already there, 19. He's going to be top. I absolutely love him as a player. But I think you're going to look at LAFC trying to sign someone in the mid-20s who can give you that as well, and maybe at a more consistent basis.
They've been so successful, even though Bwanga was older, but Ordaz, I should say Matty Bogusz, they cast a wide net. They hit and miss. But no, who else is going after young European clubs? They get a lot of guys on loan. They have a lot of guys on loan right now, so we'll see how that works out. But this is a club that does it differently. They're very savvy. When you get all these guys on loan, whether it's Cengiz Ünder or Frankie Amaya or Javier Dilrosun, you're not going to keep them, but it's like a stopgap, and then a couple guys hit, and then you have a serious conversation if the price is right. Lewis O'Brien last season, who Nottingham was asking for an astronomical fee. So you've got to stay with the parameters. It's the league we have. Richard Martinez is inconsistent. He's a young player, and his development hasn't gone as smoothly. But I think even as a young player with the opportunities, probably we should see a little bit more from him.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened, but you keep going with him because you see those moments. He got some stick at the Flamengo game. I thought he was all right, and he ran himself to the ground. They finally had to pull him out, but we didn't really have a proper replacement, so they went with 2 in the front, 3 midfielders.
Yeah.
And with the back 5. Ball dominant, David Hernandez says, for our moves. We need a 10, Richard Martinez. So the 10 is interesting, and how that changes a formation. We know it's a 4-3-3.
I don't see Steve going to a 10. He likes to play with 2 8s. He always has. I don't think Steve. By the way, this is the beginning of the end of Steve Cherundolo at LAFC, right? Like once he woke up, this is it. This is the final stretch. I don't think all of a sudden. I don't picture Steve in the office with Ante and Mark going, well, 18 games to go. I'm going to play with a 10 from now on. Like it just doesn't fit.
Can I ask you this? Could it look different from the 9? Could it be a guy who steals the 3, drops down, and can kind of? I think that's I think passing to get those really good wingers.
Yeah, that's the fit for me. It is, a Matty Bogusz as a 9. That's style of player. Someone who's an in-betweener, who you can say he can go out wide, he can go as a 10 if you do go to that at times, but that won't be the reference system for LAFC. Not when Steve Cherundolo is there. But having said that, John Thorrington's not making signings just for the rest of this season and Steve Cherundolo. He's making signings for the next couple of seasons in LAFC. So I'm interested. I do think it'll be not an out-and-out number 9. It'll be someone who can play all of those front roles and have that versatility to play them at a high level.
It's a weird situation with Steve leaving. He's here. Look, he's done a lot of good stuff already this season. They're in the playoff positions. We'll see what happens as they move forward. My guess is maybe LAFC is not first in the West, but they will be competitive, and you would imagine they're going to be better at the end of the season than they are now, because they do that every year, and they're always in the mix. MLS Cup 2022, MLS Cup runner-up 23, 2024 semifinals. So very competitive in the business end. I like that shout a lot with regards to that. But speaking of Steve Cherundolo, he's not going to want to leave this team in a worse situation. So there's going to be flexibility. John's going to also look into that. So there'll be a nice transition, whatever the next coach wants, however that next coach wants to play. Maybe they want to play the next way. Maybe the next, look, again, I don't know anything, but maybe the next coach is on that bench already because LAFC could promote.
Oh, a little bit of inside information. I see what you're doing.
I don't know. I just think
no.
LAFC are a very family affair, and they take care of these coaches. Mark Dos Santos and Ante Razov were here year one. So whatever happens with Steve and Oka Nikolov, there's going to be a good landing spot somewhere for those guys here or elsewhere. That's just how this club operates. So with regard, let's see what some folks are saying. The system will change with new coach. Who wants to come here long-term without a coach? That's another thing that's in play here. It's a delicate spot. It's not perfect. But Steve Cherundolo has so much equity, and he's done so well, and you have to have faith. And look, we're not in a good spot after the Vancouver game, but remember 3 weeks ago when they beat Club America, got to a Club World Cup. We don't know if we're going to Club World Cup again. Everyone wants to be in the Club World Cup. All the MLS.
I know we're talking directly here. We're talking directly to LAFC fans here. Right now, the reigning MLS champs have the worst points total at this stage of any team in Major League Soccer history. So we're talking first world problems here. We're talking about how do you replace a World Cup winner. We're talking
and we
about,
like that. We want to have first world
problems. Club World Cup next time. That's the standard that's being set by LAFC. You know, because you've done a good job, you haven't had those dips. And again, when you're used to fine dining, you don't automatically recognize it's bad somewhere else. But you know, LAFC have done a good job of maneuvering through deals because other clubs have been saddled with deals they can't get rid of, they can't get out of. John and the club do a really good job of short-term. You mentioned the loans. That doesn't work. We can move. We can pivot. I think it's one of the best run clubs we've ever seen in Major League Soccer in that regard. That's why it's not even a club I doubt, you know, because on top of everything, you know, you say no manager, why would a player want to come? It's LA. You know, everybody wants to come. We all know that.
And
they still do. I get calls from, I have a friend who works as a fixer for English players when they come over here, and he's always messaging me, hey, yeah, they were at the LAFC game. Like they all come and watch these games. They know about LAFC. So that's never, ever going to be an issue for LAFC in terms of recruitment.
It's a desirable situation. Look, we talked about Antoine Griezmann. He wants to come here, but he has a deal from Atletico you can't turn down. And Atletico have ambitions to be the best club in Europe, you know, $200 million transfer. So that you can't fault him for that. Maybe that circles back at the road, although that window's closed. And the carrot for Griezmann, we can wait so long.
Yeah.
There, KDK Logic. How do we feel of the chances of a replacement for Dolo being an international coach rather than a coach from MLS? I think the net's wide. They may have hired an international coach last time around, but they went with Steve. Worked out great. International coaches want to come here. So don't be surprised if it is an international coach. MLS has gone internationally. You see New York City's got an international coach. Vancouver's got an international coach. Wilfred Nancy's French. He's the best coach in the league by and large. So international coaches are coming. Dean Smith at Charlotte. So it's happening. What do you think? You're a coach.
Yeah, I've always hated this line of like, we need an international coach. You need a good coach. Like, that's it. Like, if the good coach is American, you hire the American. What Steve's done over the last few years in terms of getting this team into major moments, being, you know, when you talk the business end of tournaments, LAFC are always there. So I don't know if anybody, you know, international or not, does a better job than Steve has done over the last couple of years. So it's going to be a difficult one to replace, but I think you make sure it's the right fit. You don't just go for a massive name. Some of the foreign coaches that have come in and done really well are probably names that aren't household names to MLS fans. Jasper Sorensen, I didn't know that much about Jasper Sorensen before this season. I do now, you know, so I think it's very delicate. LAFC aren't the club that goes out and says, you know, we're going to get this massive name because of the name and play off that. They're strategic. If it's a foreign coach, he has to be a fit. He has to show to have the ability to work in this kind of situation in the past. But I'm with you. I think LAFC have generally done things from within. They have their ways. They have the family there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the club make an in-house move in that regard.
In-house or in league, I think those are all in play. Yeah. Or there's a lot of good American coaches available that could be there. LAFC fan says, with the upcoming transfer window, do we have a plan on what we want to do and what we hope for. We touched about it a little bit. It could be a big name. They'll fill the DP slot, but it could be like a bogus profile. That's what Keith said. I agree with him. Somebody that can fill that, someone who's hungry. That's, I think, the LAFC system more recently, even though we've had a cavalcade of big-time international players. I think the international players like Hugo Lloris, maybe there's a way to bring them in as a non-DP with the added bonus that they come to LA, they want to come here, they want to play for this club. So that profile of player is still out there. Jay David, a good coach that understands league and doesn't get frustrated with lack of depth. I remember Ruud Gullit when he took over.
He's the first name that came to my mind.
It was one of the 10, 15 biggest legends in our game.
Yeah.
And I did an interview. He goes, what would you like? He goes, well, we need another center back. We need a number 10. And he's like going through 8 positions. I'm like going,
you're going to do that with the 75?
Get any of that,
yeah.
And I told him, you're not going to. Not in this league. They don't allow you. So for a reason. So you need that responsibility too. And that's going to be made perfectly clear to whoever comes in. We're wrapping up the show. If you have a question or comment, drop it in now. We always enjoy the time well spent. We're with Keith Costigan of Apple and Fox and so many other places that you know and love. He called the game against Vancouver over the weekend, has a really good perspective of this club because he knows it very well and he knows the people of LAFC. So very nice to have Keith. Let's talk about next up. Black and Gold are going to be at Austin. Austin won at BMO Stadium. That'll be on Saturday. Game on Apple TV, so check it out. Austin FC coming off a loss to Seattle. Prior to that, they won a couple games, starting to score a few more goals. They made a big splash. Brandon Vasquez, Mirto Uzuni, Osman Bukhari, they filled out their DP slots. And it's going to be difficult, and Austin going to be hungry. They've been good they're getting better than they were earlier under new coach Nico Estevez. I will say this is the beginning of a very busy July. 7 games in the month. 6 games from July 5th through July 29th. So they're going to have a lot of midweek games. Next Wednesday, LAFC are back at home against the Colorado Rapids. So they're going to be coming in thick and fast. A couple midweek games. Leagues Cup starts at the end of the month against Mexican clubs. And I will say Leagues Cup is going to be big because it's going to be probably their best path to getting back to the CONCACAF Champions Cup at this point. The easiest path, for lack of a better word, Keith. So take that seriously.
When you put it that way, by the way, the Austin game, Austin always give LAFC trouble. I think back to last year, I think Kai got a late goal there. That was his record-breaking goal. Obviously, early in the season, they're you look at the league and you say, well, look, they haven't had a great season. Their DPs haven't set the world alight, but they are so difficult to play. They're so well organized. So not the easiest game to follow up the disappointing defeat to Vancouver, but I do think it's one that you'd still give LAFC the edge, even though they're on the road.
Craig says, Keith, hi from Clondalkin. Clondalkin, is that in the San Fernando Valley?
Yeah, that is in Dublin. Actually, really near where Robbie Keane is from. No, I mean, I'd say Robbie here. Is that like against the LAFC?
And that's the end of the show. No, I'm kidding. Of course you can mention Robbie.
Yeah,
Keith is the biggest Irish name dropper. He'll tell you about having lunch with Bono, Shay Given. He is Irish royalty, but now American as he's getting there. So Austin is going to be tricky, but man, now that I think of it, what happens post Club World Cup, we'll get a better look at that. I know I talked to the players over the weekend. They're so happy, and the coaches to be back in LA. This was really taxing on them. There was a big sacrifice. So they're back. It showed against Vancouver, but if it shows against Austin, our show next week will be a little bit more pacey. We'll bring Keith to ask the tough questions. Hey, well, that's this. Someone asked about relegation promotion. I think one day we'll have it. Many moons from now. Not anytime soon because we still have new clubs. I like the idea. I think it's different for in the American sports landscape to have a league that has that. I think other leagues will notice it, but it's not happening anytime soon. We can't have it now because we're still in diapers. We're growing, new money. Let's get there, and maybe one day. Are you going to touch that, Keith, or no?
Oh yeah, no. I grew up watching it, so I'm used to it. But like you say, if you don't bring it in initially, it's very difficult to all of a sudden say, hey, by the way, next year you finish bottom, you're out. Like LA Galaxy be relegated right now, and I know you'd be devastated by that, and all the LAFC fans who are messaging us right now would be completely devastated with that. But no, it's not going to happen anytime soon. If it did, I think fans would buy in because of the excitement of every game at the end of the season for those, those sides just clawing for points and needing to get wins late on. But yeah, we're not going to see that anytime soon.
If there's pro rel this year to protect San Diego, they don't need it. They're the best team. They don't need it. So that's it. I mean, one more question about who fills at number 9. I think we expect Austin. The front 3 will be Bouanga, Ordaz, and Martinez. I think that's going through. And Allen coming in. The team got paid handsomely to play in the tournament. Talk about lifting the salary cap. We did. I think there's going to be some movement because MLS and the powers that be are looking at that competition, go, we want to be part of this. This is a proof of concept, and our teams need help. I think that is going to come.
Yep.
Quick shout out to Matt Evans. He didn't play for Guatemala. He's on LAFC too. Another guy that might, we talked about, someone asked about the academy. Jude Terry's a guy who I think will make a jump at some point. Matt Evans as well. Didn't play for Guatemala. But we're going to have them on Black and Gold Insider. They're going to play the United States in St. Louis on Wednesday in the Gold Cup semis. One of our own.
Absolutely incredible story, by the way. I was thinking yesterday, obviously we saw the bits on Jesse Marsch saying at the start of the tournament, all my players are here. And then yesterday he was like, well, we only have half a team. I mean, it's mayhem. Gold Cup sometimes throws up some crazy ones. But all of a sudden, everyone's saying, well, the US will just go through. It's not the way the game works. Guatemala have their own agenda. They'll be difficult to break down. They'll be difficult to beat. And the pressure's on Pochettino now because that's a game you just can't lose. You can't lose. So I've enjoyed watching the Gold Cup, and that's going to be a fun one. Robbie,
I saw your question about Thomas Mueller. We don't know, but if we get more information, we'll let you know moving forward. That is all the time we have for this. Keith, great to be with you. Appreciate you jumping on for us. Great insight, as always. And by the way, we both know Jesse Marsch. We like him. He's a good dude, but it's good to see him eat a little crow as well.
Yeah, especially and Jesse, that's Jesse. Jesse will do that. By the way, next time you have me on, can it be after a win? You can make a lot
99% of our shows are after wins.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
This is a rarity. Hopefully it remains that way. We appreciate everyone. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Like the show here. We appreciate your support. It helps us get the word out. We'll be back again next Monday, 12:30 Pacific time on LAFC, YouTube, and Facebook. Until then, let's go Black and Gold.